Hello and welcome. My name's Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind the Country Chic Cottage. Today we're going to talk about the oven press versus using a standard oven in your craft room for sublimation on mugs and tumblers. So for this, I'm going to use primarily sublimation. I will do one mug in the oven with Infusible Ink just to prove that it can happen, but mostly I'm going to use my sublimation printer to print designs and put them on mugs and tumblers in my oven. I've done plenty of videos on the mug press. If you've not seen those, I'll link to those below. Videos where I've made mugs, tumblers, etc. We just want to talk about the differences between the two in this video and why you might choose one over the other. So hopefully you found this video. You're shopping for one or the other to add your sublimation or Infusible Ink prints to mugs, tumblers, what have you, and you're wondering which one you should buy. So hopefully this video will answer those questions. So let's start by, first of all, while I have these both on the table, let's start with size differences because it's pretty impressive, right? So this is actually a very small craft room oven. There are larger ones depending on what you purchase. So what I want to say before we get started is this oven, I bought this off Amazon a couple years ago because I wanted to experiment with sublimation on different surfaces, tumblers, mugs, things like that. I got an amazing deal. Didn't even realize how good of a deal at the time. Like, it was on super clearance and I just was looking for an oven that would work. And we will talk about how to find one that will work. But what I wanted to say is you might find a great deal or it might be pretty expensive, just depending on the time of the year you're buying and if you can find one, that type of thing. But always the size difference is going to be pretty intense, right? So this Cricut Mug Press is about the size of like a small toaster, whereas this toaster oven is very large and will take up a larger space in your craft room. So now let's take a look at the oven itself and the other materials you'll need to operate it. So it's not just purchasing the oven, you will need some more supplies. So let's take a look at the oven first and the supplies you'll need. So first you'll need the oven itself, of course. I would also recommend at least one thermometer. Actually, I'd probably recommend two. So the problem is going to be in the oven if you have any cold spots. Sublimation, like, it might work better on the left side of your oven versus the right, and you really won't know that without ruining blanks unless you have the thermometer. And then the other problem is on this one, I got such a good deal. I'm not getting rid of it at this point, but it just has like a dial to set the temperature. There's no precise control. So I go from 400 to 425 or whatever, and I just have to set it somewhere in that range if I wanted 410, for instance. A digital control would be optimal. So if you can find an oven within your price range that has a digital control instead of this manual. And then the other thing about this one, it has like an auto off. So as soon as it's done, it turns itself off. So if I'm doing multiple projects, I have to be really careful that it's actually on and heating up and not off and cooling down. So you have to be careful about that. The other thing is you want to look at the size inside. So you want to make sure that the first thing is that this tray, so mine has a bottom tray, and I'm going to pull this out, we'll talk about it in a minute. Mine has a bottom tray and it can move all the way to the bottom, which is ideal because then I can put, my mugs will fit in there standing up, as well as like small tumblers like this one will fit standing up. So that's ideal to have as many things standing up as possible. Now, something like this tumbler, you may or may not be able to get an oven tall enough for it to stand up. So for mine, it will not. That's okay. That's where we're going to talk about the pad real quick. But if you can find an oven within your price range where you can get these larger items to stand up, that's the best way to do the larger items. Alternatively, you can lay larger items down. However, what I would recommend, this is called a Nomex pad, and I'll link to that below. So it's something like the firefighter suits are made out of, basically. And you can put this over your rack. So basically your rack is going to be a hot spot. So it's going to be hotter than the rest of your oven. That pad helps reduce that and reduces those hot spots when you lay your items down. Then the other thing we're going to do one of these. When we lay it down, we're going to do it for like half the time. Then we're going to flip it over and do it the other half of the time. So you will need to watch your time when you're doing those items that lay down. And like I said, watch any cold spots in your oven with those thermometers. So the other items you'll need protective paper, scissors. If you're using a sublimation printer, you'll need sublimation paper, and heat tape. And I've been using a different heat tape in like every video the past couple of weeks because I'm trying to test them all so I can do a future video on what one I like best. So we have a different one today. But those you need regardless. So I need those with the mug press. I need those with an oven. I need those things regardless. Heat resistant gloves, I like them with my mug press, although they're not required. But you're gonna definitely need them with the oven. So the entire thing is going to get hot with an oven. So even on the mugs, the handle's going to get hot, so you're going to need heat resistant gloves most definitely, and a like protective pad to put your items on to cool. So all those things I need regardless. I need both of these, would need those few items. So oven specific, I need the oven. I need my temperature gauge, at least one, probably two, and I need the Nomex pad for items if I want to lay them down. So I purchased my oven. I found one that has a big enough opening, and that's basically where you need to be careful. So the smaller the oven, so you're probably looking for an oven that doesn't take up a lot of room. The smaller the oven, the smaller the opening, and some of those you can't even fit a mug in really. So you don't want to get it so close that it's super close at the top. Again, like just the warm and cool areas. So you want air to be able to flow all the way around the mug. So I would use caution and get as big of a size as you can. But what you're going to need to do is wrap your mugs and tumblers in order to use this oven. So when you use the Cricut Mug Press, you press it down, and basically this is your wrap, this inside piece, and it closes around and squeezes that mug or tumbler. To mimic that in the oven, I'm going to try a couple different options for you today, and so you can see the difference between them, but you will need to purchase either one of these. So the first option we're going to look at is these silicone wraps, and I have two different types to use just for a comparison type deal. So what I've read on these is they last 20 to 30 basically blanks, and after that you will possibly need to buy another one because they're going to stretch and wear out. And you need one of these for every size. So I actually thought I had 3 wraps to compare, and when I went to put them all on the same mug, and when I went to test them a few minutes ago, the third one is actually way too big for this mug. So I only have 2, and these are 2 different sizes actually. So I'll show you these. So that would be like a taller mug that is the same diameter. So you can see they're both as long, but this one's for a taller mug and this one's for a shorter mug. So every mug, every tumbler, every blank you use in your sublimation oven, you need some sort of wrap. Now, these silicone wraps, aren't cheap. There is a somewhat less expensive option, and I have 2 different brands of it as well. But again, so this is a shrink wrap basically, and we're going to use this as well. And you shrink it with a heat gun, and it basically shrinks to your surface and sort of wraps it up and provides that pressure that you need. So you're looking for the pressure with either the silicone wrap or the shrink film. The shrink film, again, so I've got like 6 sizes here. It comes in a huge wide variety of sizes. And you might be able to use, say, the same one for this tumbler and this mug. But if I have this tumbler, I'm probably going to need a whole new wrap that's longer. So it needs to cover the entire thing all at once, if that makes sense. So those are extra cost. And these shrink film wraps are not reusable. So every time you make a mug or tumbler, you'll need a shrink film wrap, and that's disposable. So that is extra money that you need to invest when you use an oven with the wraps that you wouldn't need with the mug press, if that makes sense. So net, depending on sales, I understand that, and depending on the oven that you can purchase, I really think that price-wise, it's almost a wash, because you will need to find that oven at the best price possible, but you will need to continually invest in the wraps, whereas with the mug press you would not. So I'm just going to kind of call the price around equal, and we'll see which one performs better and which one sort of you like better maybe. And it may come down to a personal preference thing, but we'll talk about that at the end. So first, let's make mugs, tumblers, etc. Like I have several different tumblers. I'm going to make mugs a few different ways. So I'm going to use the wraps on the mugs, the shrink wrap on the mugs, Infusible ink on a mug. Like we're just going to make a ton of different mugs. And let's just see how the oven does first. And then at the end, we'll kind of compare and contrast so you can make a decision on which one's right for you. So let's look at wrapping these mugs and how you do that. Okay, I have my oven heating up in the background if you can hear it. And I did forget to mention you will need a heat gun to shrink this. So the first one we're going to do is the mug test with 2 different versions of the silicone wrap, one with shrink wrap, and then we'll do one with shrink wrap and Infusible ink so we can see how that does. So for all of these, I'm going to use the same mug, and I'm just going to use the Cricut mug. Any mugs will work, any sublimation mugs. So you do need one with the sublimation coating on them. And first of all, we're just going to clean our mugs, and for that I use a lint roller. So we're just going to clean these mugs, and what I've done is printed the same sublimation print 3 times. So for each of these tests, I have the same exact sublimation print, and all I did was trim around it with a pair of scissors. And then we're just going to add that to our mugs, center that up. And when you do mugs like this, you can go under the handle with varying results. For these silicone wraps, this one you'll see goes under the handle and would probably work. This one does not. So you need to watch which wrap you buy. For the shrink wrap ones, you could go under the handle. So a lot of times it's not as tight on the handle and you may get some fading, but you can go under the handle, and I am just going to stick with these away from the handle just for comparison purposes. And that way they're all the same, because I can't go under the handle with this We Are Memory Keepers wrap. And always remember, I'll link to everything in the description below. If you don't see everything, just click show more. And on the app, you might have to click a couple buttons to find the description, but everything should be there. So I'm just making sure this is really tight and on there well. And then if any of it is not tight, you'll just want to add some more tape, and I might just tape down this bottom a little bit more. But everything is going to pull it in, so I think that's probably good. So let's work on a silicone wrap first. So this one is fairly simple. So it's basically just a piece of silicone with a few holes in it, and you just pull it tight with these are silicone zip ties, and you just pull it tight with those. It doesn't get super tight. This other brand actually gets a lot tighter, but I did want to show you this version. And you just get it as tight as you can on the surface of the mug. And my problem with it, and so there's my oven. First of all, the oven is, it does smell quite a bit. And like I said, the one I have turns itself off. So as soon as you hear that ding, it says it's done, even though I just want to preheat it. And it turns itself off at that point. So I have to turn it back on every time it dings. So that's what I said. If you are looking for an oven and don't want that hassle, I would definitely look for one that you can just turn on and leave on. Okay, so the problem I have with this one is like deciding which of these holes to use and attempting to get it as tight as possible. And as you can see, this is why I say this one will not do under the handle. Like, you can't actually tighten it up under the handle, so I don't think it would work for under the handle sublimation. All right, so I'm pretty sure that's as tight as we're gonna get it. So this one goes in the oven for 5 minutes, and I'm just gonna go ahead and place it in. So the first thing with my oven is I'm checking those thermometers, and I'm looking at if I have any cold spots, and I do. So one side of my oven is colder than the other, so I'm going to put it on to the side that is the correct temperature, and I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes, and we'll go ahead and work on wrapping the rest of these while it bakes. All right, now that mug is in, timer set for 5 minutes. So let's do another mug with one of these wraps. So all you would do is basically see, so the smaller one works for this mug. And this is like, it comes in a 2-pack on Amazon, and I will link to that below. And we're gonna follow the exact same procedure, but you'll see this mug wrap, the silicone wrap's a little bit easier to use in my opinion. So we can put on our sublimation print just like before. Check and make sure everything's tight again. Add tape in any loose areas. And then this one, you wrap it around, and then there's like a buckle for under the handle. And that's better. So the entire bottom is covered now, excess at the top, and then you have the buckle under the handle. So this one's ready for the oven, and as soon as the other one is done, we'll add this one. But let's go ahead and work on this shrink wrap for now. So for the shrink wrap, we're gonna do the exact same procedure. Clean it really well with a lint roller. These are all the same mug again, remember. We'll put our sublimation print on there. So like I said, there are various sizes. You want the shrink wrap. It does not matter how long it is because we can cut it off. And there was my timer if you heard that. And once again, remember I said this oven turns itself off, so I am going to turn the oven back on so it stays heated up. And we're gonna remove this first one and let it cool on this mat. And then I'm gonna add the second one to the oven, same time, same temperature. And I'm gonna set this one to the side for just a minute, and let's go ahead and finish wrapping this mug. So you, like I said, it does not matter how long it is. We can cut this with scissors, but you want it to be able to go around the entire mug with the handle if possible. You could cut it and go around the handle, but it is easier to do it like this and have it with the handle inside. And then I'm just gonna cut off a little bit of this excess. You do want some excess because you want it to kind of fold over the blank. So my mug, I'll pull this out so you can see. So my mug will be about in the center, and there'll be excess on both sides. And then for the handle, we're gonna cut a slit into the paper. So we're just going to, about in the center, we're gonna cut a slit into this paper, and we want it about as long as the handle. So then when I put my mug inside, that handle should fit through the slit, and we can just slightly enlarge it until we get it to go over. And then as we apply heat, we don't want this slit opening up too much. So I'm gonna take a piece of tape, I'm gonna put it over this cut edge on this side, the cut edge on this side, and a couple of strips in the center to hold it closed. If you have you know, something under here that you're going to sublimate, like you're going to sublimate under the handle, you'll want to make sure to be very careful and tape this as much as possible. I don't have anything there, so I just want to tape enough to hold it together. All right, now it's heat gun time. So I'm just going to use this heat gun. Does not matter the brand of heat gun. I will want a heat resistant glove to hold the mug. And I want to start on this side away from where I just cut and taped. So we are going to turn this heat gun on. And as it heats up, it'll just start shrinking that up. And we just want to pull it to the mug. And work our way around to that back portion. And then you want to pull it in on the top and the bottom. And some people can get this without wrinkles. I'm not that good. We're going to run with it. That's probably pretty good, but I do want it to sit flat, so I'm gonna just kind of chop a little bit off the bottom. And so now it will sit flat, and this one is ready for the oven as soon as that second one's done. But let's go ahead and reveal the design on this first one, and then we'll wrap our Infusible Ink mug as well. So while I was preparing to unwrap this, my second mug is done. So I'm just gonna remove that from the oven. Remember, everything's hot. Wear your heat resistant glove. We're gonna set it over here, and I'm gonna set this mug inside. Again, checking time and temperature. And we'll turn that on for 5 minutes. And I am just gonna unwrap this one while it's warm. So for sublimation, the tape is easier to remove when it's warm. So a lot of times I'll peel it when it's warm. Plus I'm not very patient. Would be the second part of that. And I have no idea how I got that through there. There we go. All right, so this is the We Are Memory Keepers wrap. And you can start to see that sublimation. And it did not really work. So you'll see, like, it didn't really work at all. So I am going to increase the time at least on this other mug and maybe rebake this one because I'm thinking it didn't work either. We may retry this We Are Memory Keepers wrap on another mug. Okay, I actually added this mug back to the oven for another like 4 or 5 minutes. So that is kind of the problem with the oven, is you're gonna have to experiment with how long it's gonna take for each blank. I can tell this one is sublimated better just by looking at it. So I'm gonna allow it to cool for a few seconds. And then in the meantime, I've been prepping the Infusible Ink one. Again, I cleaned it with a lint roller. I have 2 different colors of Infusible Ink and I've taped them down well on both sides. And I went ahead and prepped a subless shrink wrap. And we'll just get the handle through there. And we're gonna do this one in the same way with the heat gun. All right, so once we have this on here, we're gonna wanna tape once again where we cut it. And my other one with subless shrink is just about ready. Like, I can see it in the oven. And so we're about to pull that out. Actually, we can probably pull it out right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull it out and I'm gonna show you what I mean. So pull this over. I'm gonna pull this out and it's super hot. Okay, so what I want to show you is on the subless shrink, hopefully you can see it. You can actually see the sublimation coming through a little bit, and that means that it's sublimated to the mug itself. On the silicone wraps, it is harder to see. I will try again with the We Are Memory Keepers. Let's see if these two work first, and we'll go ahead and get our Infusible Ink mug ready and in this oven. So once again, we're just gonna turn this on. start from the opposite side. Make sure it's kind of straight. That looks pretty good, and again, I probably had too much excess, so I'm just going to cut that off the bottom so it sits in the oven. Then we're going to put this in the oven. I'm going to try 8 minutes and then check it. I just think for my oven that 4 minutes is not enough. So the reason I like these is they're super easy to undo. That would be the top reason to get them. So if you can see that, it did get a little ink on there. So I might have to use paper from now on when I use that, because that ink could get on future projects. So we'll just peel this back, and you can see this worked amazingly. So gorgeous. Even around to the darker and the black sky. So black ink transfers last. So that's a good test. Like, I could use that mug I messed up and put some black strips on it and kind of check my oven and see what temperature and time work best for the mugs, just with that, because now it's scrap. And then I could use that to do future mugs. So I will note that you can use like black strips of like a sublimation print around a scrap mug like that. But this one looks amazing. So let's see if this one is still blazing hot, like it was super hot a while ago. So if you peel this off hot, it is easier to get off. So once this shrink wrap cools, it gets super brittle, and you can see it's kind of brittle now, but it'll get really, really brittle and harder to take off. So I will note that. And we'll peel this one back and take a look at this sublimation mug. And again, this one looks amazing. So you can see that. And I feel like they're comparable. I think I did one upside down, but that's okay. I didn't do a pattern on purpose. But I think they're comparable as far as colors between the second wrap and the Subla Shrink. So I will wrap another one with this We Are Memory Keepers wrap, and we'll wait on our mug with the Infusible Ink to get done. All right, my timer just went off for my second, the Infusible Ink mug, so I'm going to pull it out. And I don't know if I'll be able to see through for Infusible Ink, so we'll just set that to the side. All right, so I'm trying this wrap again, and this time I did the 4 ties like this on the end, hoping that would pull it tighter, and we'll do the 8 minutes and see what happens. All right, and let's see if I can get this off of here while it's still pretty hot. And you might be able to get a sneak peek there. It did work. So there is my purple, and there is my pink. So the same procedure does work for Infusible Ink as well as sublimation. So I'm just going to continue to get this tape off, and we'll come back and look at the one with the We Are Memory Keepers wrap, as well as do some more tumblers. For all the tumblers, I'll have to use some sort of the Subla Shrink or the shrink plastic material because I don't have any wraps for tumblers, just mugs. So we'll come back and take a look at those as well. All right, I've just been working away here, so let's take out, I have a small tumbler ready to come out. And I have this big guy, so I have a full wrap on it. You can probably see how smooth I got this shrink wrap. And I just went over it, getting the wrinkles out. You just want to be careful not to hold your heat gun in any one place. You don't want any holes. If you get any holes in the shrink wrap itself, you will need to add tape over it. And then I'm prepping another one here. So in a lot of these, I'm taping all the way around just so I get a really good, close, tight fit with my sublimation print. This one is actually steel, so I get asked all the time about blanks that are not white, so we'll be doing one of those. So this one is a full wrap. Part of the design goes all the way around. So I'm going to place it with the majority of the design up in the oven. I'm going to bake it set the timer, and then about halfway through I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to have it on that Nomex pad. This one is just going to be, this design is just going to be on one side, so I'll probably just place it in the oven like this so that the design is up, and do it for the full time all at once. And then I did want to note, make sure that this isn't hot anymore. So this one with the Infusible Ink, this side is much darker than this side. So what is happening is my oven, the heat is not consistent. So what I need to do is every blank, even the ones that stand up, halfway through, I need to rotate them so that they get more even heating. So, and you only know that by making multiple pieces with different types of designs to see what is happening in your particular oven. So I just wanted to note that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do some more of these, and then we'll come back and take a look at some results. Okay, this is the tumbler I took out. This had a different shrink wrap on it, so it's a different brand. I'll link to both brands below. Both seem to work wonderfully. So just depending on which is cheaper at the time, you can try different ones. And then I have some more tumblers ready to go, but I wanted to talk about templates just a second. So most of the time, if you buy sublimation blanks, you will get a template. So I'm gonna do this shot glass as well as this tumbler with a template. So for this version, for the shot glass, I took this into a program on my computer and made a template exactly the right size. And now I can just cut around that with a pair of scissors. I could use print then cut on my Cricut to cut around it, whichever I wanted to do, and then it will fit perfectly around my shot glass. Now what if you don't have the ability to do this? What if, and you do not have to cut exactly on the line, by the way, if you just cut slightly outside of it, the sublimation will work fine. And I'm going to cut just a little long on that so I have something to tape to. And what if you don't have the ability to do it this way? So this is a sublimation print. This is just a print off my computer of the template. So I'm going to cut this as close as possible. And I'm just going to use a pin to trace the template onto the sublimation print. Then I can cut around my pin line. So even if you don't have those programs or don't understand how to use them, if you just print using your sublimation printer, print your template, and I made it purple just so you could see it pretty good. Make your template with your regular printer, then you can use just a pin and trace around that template. I'm just going to kind of make sure that's in the center and straight. And if you heard that, that is my tumbler done. So I'm going to go ahead and get that out. All right, and then I can just trace around this. Let's get as much on there as possible. Then just add this to my tumbler and make it like usual. All right, so this one is actually cooled completely while I've been working on some other things. So we're going to take this wrap off, see how it did this time. I'm hoping for better results. It looks much better this time. So I think the longer time, maybe the different way I put it on, but it's still, do you see how the other ones were super clear all the way around? This wrap is still not holding tight to the mug. And let me see if I can show you what I'm talking about. So this is the mug made with the Subli shrink, and you can see how dark this is versus how light this is. I just do not like that We Are Memory Keepers wrap. On the other side, there's a place as well. So I would definitely not recommend the We Are Memory Keepers wrap, at least. I don't think it holds it tight enough. And I've only made, like I said, I've used that before. I only made like 4 or 5 mugs. So if it only lasts for 4 or 5 mugs and then does this, I would definitely not recommend it. I did say the hotter it is, the easier it peels. So I'm going to show you one that I've almost let cool. It literally comes off in shards. So if you can get your heat resistant glove and peel off as soon as you possibly can, you will definitely be better off. Otherwise, the peeling process takes a little while. And what I usually do when this happens, because it'll probably happen to you, is I just sort of work my way down. And I have another mug done. I'm gonna go ahead and take that one out. You can just keep working your way down, and sometimes you can get it to peel and then peel at an angle, and most of the time when I've let it get this cool it just stops, but it did at least get a little bit off. And you can try from the bottom, but you just have to kind of work with it once it gets to this point. And sometimes you can get the sublimation paper started. So I can kind of lift that tape up. There is my full wrap tumbler. So it's just wrapped in this area. The rest of it is just a single design. And I will link to where I got all of these designs as well. So there is my 20-ounce full wrap tumbler. So I'm waiting on my last tumbler, and it's in the oven right now. So this is the one, this is on the steel. And if you can tell, the steel color kind of peeks through, so you wouldn't have any white on these. So that's why mainly you see white blanks, is because the steel color kind of comes through. But it works for some designs, other designs it wouldn't. And then this is my little shot glass, and it looks really good. That black came out amazing looking. So you can literally sublimate anything from a small shot glass to a large tumbler. So I kind of wanted to do like a range in this video. I have one more tumbler, and then we'll talk about the Cricut Mug Press versus the oven. All right, this is the last one, and I am in love with the way this turned out. So you can see a seam where the two met, but otherwise this one is gorgeous. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the top and stuff back on here. That is one thing I wanted to note. Anytime you're sublimating these tumblers, you need to take the plastic top off before doing the sublimation process, and then you can put it back on after it's cool. And this one's just about cool enough to add that back. So now let's talk about our comparison. Okay, now you've seen a pretty wide variety of things you can make using an oven with sublimation. So I made everything from this little shot glass all the way up to this large tumbler. Now, some tumblers are easy to do that full wrap design, like this one. So this last one I made, I did the full wrap. Others aren't really intended to do the full wrap anyway. So basically, for me, the price is about the same, except you're gonna have to continually put money into the oven because you're going to need wraps to do all of these. The mug press essentially wraps it itself, so you don't need that extra money once you invest in this. And then the size difference. It's gonna be like, this is about the smallest oven I could find where I could do the mug standing up, and then I do the tumblers laying down, flip them halfway through. This is about the smallest oven I could find to do that. So you can see it and how large it is, even though it was the smallest I could find. So you may have to go bigger to get an oven that will work. So just note that as well. And then the drawback of the mug press, I've done tumblers in the mug press. They just need to be a straight wall. So, and they need to be a certain diameter. So this one is actually too skinny to put in the mug press, which is one reason I did it with my oven. And then something like this has a tapered side. So I would not be able to do that in my mug press. I would need a straight-sided tumbler And then what I do in my mug press, and I'll link to a video below, is I turn them upside down. So this full wrap design would be super difficult in the mug press. I've seen some people attempt it by like doing one side of the mug, then turning it another side, flipping it, doing the next side. So I guess it is possible, but you do need some tricks to do it with the mug press. Now, the drawbacks to the oven. Inconsistent heat. When you look up your sublimation blank, so here's what you need to do. So I bought the sublimation blank. So I got these from a variety of sources. I'll link to all the sources below. This one's from Condi. Condi does a great job of giving you the instructions for the oven. However, some of these others, let's say the mugs was one problem I had. The straight wall 20 ounce was another problem I had. A lot of times the mug instructions for a sublimation blank are intended for a mug press. So you have to hunt to find instructions for a sublimation oven, or just oven. It's like a toaster oven that you would use in your kitchen. You have to struggle to find the instructions to use with your oven because it's not that readily available. So then you get into testing and you get mugs like this that you waste while you're testing. Now hopefully that testing period only lasts you for a few samples, but as you, like each one of these is a different time and temperature. So you may need multiple blanks to test before you get that perfect right time and temperature for your particular oven. And if you need to rotate it, like I said, a couple of these had a side where it was not as bright, especially this one. So it definitely needs some rotation. The Infusible Ink one definitely needed to be rotated halfway through. So as you do each one, you might waste a few blanks, so that adds to the cost of that oven, in order to find that right time and temperature. The mug press does all that for you. So it doesn't even have a time and temperature. You turn it on, you put it in, you press it down, and it detects the temperature of the blank itself and makes sure it comes to the right temperature for the right amount of time to reach that sublimation temperature. And the oven is just not going to do that for you. And I find that I got a great deal on this oven. It's amazing. I keep those 2 thermometers inside and I have to watch them constantly. It is very, very inconsistent. So I might have it set at 400 and it might be 375 today, and tomorrow it might be 410. So I'm constantly having to adjust the temperature, even as I was making these, in the amount of time, a couple hours that I made these, all of these mugs and tumblers, I had to adjust the temperature several times, probably multiple times within each batch, to get it right. So there's a lot of adjustment. You have to watch it. It does take longer in a lot of cases than the mug press. So there also are some drawbacks. You can get some gorgeous results. I'm in love with this tumbler. So I'm not going to say you can't get gorgeous results, but there are some huge drawbacks and a huge learning curve to using the oven for sublimation. I'll just say that. But obviously, it's definitely possible. You can sublimate all kinds of things with an oven. And I get asked all the time where I get my blanks. So I'm going to, like I said, list those below, but Condi is a great source. So these, the shot glass, these 2 came from Condi. Artistry was this little wine tumbler here. The mugs are Cricut mugs. This one was from Heat Transfer Warehouse. I'll also say I used 2 different brands of the heat shrink plastic, one from Heat Transfer Warehouse and one from Condi. Both work great. So probably just click over to those, price compare those, and then pick which one you wanted. Now I will say the green wraps definitely worked better, so I'll link to those. I picked those up on Amazon. The blue-ish one was We Are Memory Keepers, and I did not like that one at all. That's the one that did not hold the mug very well. So this one and this one, that was a total fail. So hopefully that gives you some things to think about. I don't think you could really go wrong with either one. I love both for different reasons. I'll probably keep both in my craft room just because I have a lot of space. If you don't have a ton of space, just get the mug press. Use straight-sided blanks. Refer back to that video I did before on how to do tumblers. I think you'll be super happy with the mug press itself. Now, if you just really want to do large tumblers that don't have a straight side. If you really like these full wrap designs, you can definitely experiment with an oven. Just be aware it is a learning curve. So pick up the right size shrink wrap. Remember, you're gonna need one for each tumbler you do, and you're gonna need different sizes to accommodate, like this is a way different size than this little guy. And you can use your scraps off those. So if you have like a big tumbler wrap and you cut it small for a mug, the piece you have left you could use for a shot glass. So you can use your scraps off those sometimes, but mostly it's like one wrap to one project. So you're going to want to keep a lot of those on hand. And then I would buy extra blanks, especially if you're working with a blank you haven't used before, because you're going to want to experiment with your oven, the placement of the blank, whether you need to rotate it, the time and the temperature. All of those factors are going to play in to whether you get a really good looking, like quality, professional looking project, or something that basically fails. So hopefully that helps you understand and compare the mug press to the oven. So if you are in the market and wondering which to purchase, hopefully this helps you a little bit. I will link to some ovens below. Remember, I probably won't link to exactly the oven I purchased. I've never seen it actually in stock again, and it's been like 2 years. Because I got a really great deal, but I'll do some research, look for some ovens that are large enough. So the oven may be larger footprint than this. Check out on Amazon for the dimensions if you're worried about whether it will fit in your space, because they can get very, very large. So I will just note that. And then the pad that I put on the inside, I will link to that. I got that from Condi, and that allows you to lay your larger tumblers down and avoid hot spots when you do that. And then you're going to want to pick up at least 2 of those temperature gauges so you can actually see the actual temperature inside the oven and not just guess by the dial. And again, I do recommend, if you're going to invest in the oven, get one that has the digital temperature control. I think you'll be way happier, and a digital timer if you can get it. Again, mine is just like a turn on both, and it's not very accurate. So I do have some trouble with that as well. So hopefully this helps. If you have any questions about anything I've covered today, drop down in the comment section, ask away. If you like this video, if it helped you, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We do videos like this all the time, and you don't want to miss any of those. I have another comparison planned for the Cricut Mug Press. I hope to compare it to like a regular mug press, and then we can do like a big compilation video and, you know, all three, which is the best, like a mug press throwdown or something. And I also have a video coming up on which mug lasts the longest. So I'm going to put these to the test and see how long they last when I run them through the dishwasher, like in the top rack. And I have all kinds of other mugs to test for that as well. So we'll look at like all the ways to make mugs and what is the best way as well. So you don't want to miss that. So thank y'all so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next week with another great video. Thanks y'all. Bye-bye.